Yes, how's the mood? Everybody is a bit sleepy after lunch. Yes. Hello. Yeah. Yes. How many of you heard of progressive web apps? Yay! Cool. Awesome. How many of you heard about the Workbox? Good. Almost half. Yes. Okay. It's a lightning talk, so unfortunately, no funny slides. Almost. Um, My name is Alan. I work in a company called Anonic here in Oslo, and I want to thank you, Mobile Era, for a great event. Awesome, awesome organization, as always, third year in a row. Yes, we will talk about progressive web apps, or PWA, or how they call them in Norway, PWA. I don't know why. Yes, and web developers just love the concept because finally web developers can build mobile apps. We've been waiting for this forever, and finally we can do this. And progressive web apps are web apps. I stressed it out because I'm getting some questions like, are they hybrid apps? No, they are not hybrid apps. They're web apps. And the goal is to deliver a native-like experience across all platforms and devices, regardless of connection and the device size. Very simple concept, but it's not simple to get it right. How do progressive web apps managed to do that? The secret is that they kind of give us the best of both worlds and a bit more. They're better than a regular website in the sense that they have offline support, and you don't get this annoying cannot connect to internet page or spinners if you're on a bad connection. And at the same time, the app still looks and behaves like a native. And they're better than a native app because they save you from this pain of getting approved by App Store, getting your app discovered in a store, because it's almost impossible if people don't know what they're looking for. And the last but not least, your app is always up to date thanks to service workers. And this is important. One code base. You no longer have to support several code bases, one for Android, one for iOS, and website in addition. So your boss should be happy. So why build a progressive web app instead of native? And is it even possible? Yes, now it's possible. There are several reasons. Finally, modern browsers have access to device hardware thanks to web APIs. They can deliver push notifications. There, of course, might be annoying, so don't overuse them. Offline storage, important. You can store data in your browser storage. You can add these apps to home screen so that they look like native on your home dashboard. As I said, they have a native look. Did I mention one code base? Yes, I did. Background sync, also important. If you're on a train and then you change data, you make some changes in your app, and click save. You don't want to see the no internet connection. You want to see that, okay, my changes are saved, and then when you're online, your data will be synced with the storage. They're easily installable. You don't have to log into App Store and then click find and then click install, then click open. It's online. You just open it as a regular website. Deep linking, you can just add or not add, but send the link to the page in your app to your friend. And it's always fresh because the service worker will make sure that it's updated. How's the browser support? It's decent. 86% of browsers support service workers. With Web Manifest, it's a bit less. But yeah, Chrome is, of course, the ahead. But Microsoft and Mozilla, they catch up, and even Apple finally jumped on board last year, and then after that, it just things have really taken off. Yes, so progressive web apps are awesome. That's a funny slide, the only one I have. So what's the problem then? Should we just go on and start writing progressive web apps? No. Well, yes and no. It depends on how much time you have and how miserable you want your life to be. If like things like Web Manifest, they're relatively simple. When you start coding your service worker, you get pre-caching, which is kind of a bit complicated, but still it's okay. Except for that, you have to kind of always remember to update the list of assets. But then when you start playing with the runtime caching, it gets even more complicated. And even more complicated. So I wrote this, and then I was on the edge of my mental stability. But it might get even worse than this, depending on what caching strategies you want to support when you do runtime caching. So it might get complicated, but Workbox. Finally, we got to this part. What is Workbox? Workbox is the successor to SW Precache and SW Toolbox. If you've been playing around with PWAs for a long time, you certainly know about these tools. And Workbox is basically the library of the modules and plugins that are designed to make your life easier. They help you with the automatic generation of the service worker, pre-caching, runtime caching. They implement caching strategies for you, which you can just pick from. Routing, background syncing, Google Analytics, and much more. And it's backed by Google, so which means that it will be around for a while. Yes, let's see how we can get started with Workbox. Step number 1 would be to generate the service worker and pre-cache the app shell. There are several ways. The first one is CLI. You install the Workbox CLI, and you run a simple wizard. We all love wizards. They make our life much easier. And it will generate the config file for you. It's a very basic version, but the main parts are here. And then once you have the config, you just generate the service worker, basically a really simple command, Workbox generate SW. And then it takes your config and it generates the service worker file for you. Simple. Yeah, so this is the file that is used. Another way is npm. It's if you're using the build, you just add dependency to your build, and then you just add this to your build script. It doesn't matter if you're what build tool you're using, Gulp or Grunt or anything. The config here is the same you saw on previous slide. You just inject it into your build script. Webpack, I'm using this personally. I think it's an awesome plugin, and Abraham and Pearl talked about this. Awesome talk, by the way. Yeah, so you just you install the plugin, and again you just add this to your Webpack config. Same principle as here. You just specify where you want your service worker to be generated, and this will override the service worker every time. But if you want to just inject the functionality into your existing service worker, you use inject manifest instead. And then when you build, you will get something like this. This is a very simple version. And I highlighted this part here. What does it do? This line injects the manifest. What is manifest? Manifest will also be generated on the build, and this is basically the list of assets that have to be pre-cached by your service worker. So if you don't specify any pattern, then it will just use the Webpack assets, but you can control this. Yeah, and the next thing that Workbox does awesomely is runtime caching. This is, as I mentioned, the real pain if you have to do it manually. Yes. When you start with the runtime caching, it's important that you learn about caching strategies. It's you have to know what you want to cache and how you want to cache it, because it heavily depends on your site, on your app, what does it do and how it should serve the response to your end users. There is a great cookbook on the Google site, which I suggest you read before you even start playing with it. But Workbox offers you all of this out of the box. So it's up to you to choose which of the strategies you want to use for different requests in your app. Yeah, and then to enable runtime caching, you just add this part to the same config which we looked at earlier. So you just add this, you specify the pattern of the URL that you want to cache runtime, and you specify the handler, which is basically the strategy I talked about, and then some options like if you want to store images in separate cache, you specify cache name, and yeah, if you want to expire your cache to be to invalidate in a day, then you specify it here. And if you want to cache requests to external URLs, you just specify the regex. Or you can do this directly in your service worker code. Bless you. Yes, quick summary. If you want to start with Workbox, if you don't have any experience, but you just burn in to build your first PWA, go to the Workbox site and read guides. They even have some hands-on guides there to guide you through the entire process of building an app. Yeah, learn about the strategies and pre-caching, because it's, I would say, this is the most important concept that you have to know about when you start working with the more progressive web apps. Decide what assets you should cache, because it's not all of them. Some should be pre-cached, some should be cached dynamically in runtime, some should not be cached at all. Choose which tool you will use, CLI or NPM or Webpack plugin. Then use that tool to have the Workbox generate the service worker for you. Then, of course, you have to register the service worker and then just build the entire PWA. Yes, and I have the slides with some useful resources. If you didn't get the rest of what I said, you can take the picture of this slide and just take a look at it home. And I invite you to join our Slack channel. It has almost 2,000 members so far, and we have the representatives of all the major browser vendors there who can answer your questions if you have them. Yes, so that was more or less it. Everything I wanted to say in just 15 minutes, and this talk is available here. If you live in Oslo or London, I also invite you to join our meetups, which we have on a regular basis, where we talk about progressive web apps, of course. And you can contact me directly on Twitter or email. Yeah, I work in a company called Anonic, and thank you and stay progressive.